Okay, wonderful GoPro, and it does happen to be a hot day today. And it's even hotter in my shed, but so it keeps overheating and shutting down on me. Basically, just as the camera shut down, I got this put together. And then I decided to pull it back apart, so I was like, well, how do I know if it's actually, if this is interfacing with that pressure ring correctly? So there is a, I guess like a timing mark on here. There's a little dot on the end of the shaft right here. See here if you can spot that. Kinda, sorta. Yeah, so there's a dot there. It's used on here, so this has a dot as well. So this is the arm for it. It's got a dot right there. Basically, you line up those two dots so that you know you have this arm sitting in the right spot before you start setting up your cable pull or cable tension for having this set up correctly. Now, another way to know whether or not it's in place is, the first is, if you just move it a wee bit, you can actually see the movement start down in here. I doubt you'll see it on camera because it's very subtle. But if you put your hand down on here, press down on it, and then turn this more, it'll actually try to separate the case halves. So basically, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this while I do this, but like I'm pushing down with my arm. And then I'm just going to turn this excessively, and it will actually try to separate the case halves. And so I know that it's interfacing with that pressure ring, and that pressure ring is generating pressure against the clutch pack, which is generating pressure against this side of the case, trying to separate it out. And it feels nice and smooth. The spring is you know, springing it back properly, stuff like that. So it's feeling good. So that is that. We basically put in all the screws, or all the bolts, I guess, and torque those down. Now I'm sure there's probably a torque pattern here. Let's see. Apply a non-locking agent to the cover bolts 1 to 4 and tighten them following the tightening sequence as shown. The torque is, so there's 8 bolts total. Torque for front final gear case bolts 1 to 8, so all of them, is 87 foot-pounds. Okay, so you do 1 to 4, and then 5 to 8. L equals 60 millimeters. Oh, okay, so it even gives us the length here. So 1 to 4, the length is 60 millimeters, so it's like the longer ones. And the 5 to 8 is the shorter one, so 30 millimeters. You know, kind of makes sense. Put some non-locking agent or non-permanent locking agent to them. They all torque to 87 foot-pounds, and it gives you the torque sequence. So I'm going to get these all started, and then I will actually show you the torque sequence after I get them torqued down. It doesn't say to step torque them, but going to 87 foot-pounds, I probably will anyways. I'll probably torque them to like 60, and then we'll finish them off at 87. Yeah, that's about it. Okay, so I'll bring you guys back after I'm ready to show you the torque pattern. Well, I guess just in case here, see if it'll show up on my camera. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to be legible at all. Trying to get it to focus. But anyways, if you can read that, great. I'll put it in the video. If not, I will bring you all back and actually show you the torque pattern. So I'm going to get that done. just about destroyed this entire front end by listening to this manual. Now, because my wrenches are they're in like foot-pounds, I usually look at the foot-pound measurement instead of like the Newton meters or the kilograms foot. What is that? I'm not even sure how you say that. KGFM. But anyways, this thing says 87 foot-pounds for these bolts. That is 100% incorrect. I got thinking about it while I was doing that, while I was just setting these bolts up. That's a lot of pressure to put on a little 8mm frickin' bolt head. It just didn't sit right with me, so I checked it out. And because we did a bunch of M6s earlier, so these are actually M6s, but it's got an 8mm bolt head on it. So we did a bunch of M6s for the first half of the case, and I remember those being like 7 foot-pound. So I went and checked it out. Sure enough, 9.8 Newton meters actually equals 87 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, inch-pounds. Which is just shy or just over 7 foot-pounds. It's actually 7.228 or something like that. So I'm just going to set my smaller torque wrench to 7 foot-pounds, and that should do the job. Alright, so our torque pattern is the long ones first. Oh, and sorry, I actually was like, oh, you put thread lock on all the bolts. You only put them on the 60mm long bolts. Alright, not on the 30s, just on the 60s. So the longer bolts get Loctite, the other ones do not. So these are the longer ones, one here, one here, one here, and one here. So in our bolt torquing spec is we do 1, 2, or sorry, ignore that. We do 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it goes to the shorter ones is 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so we torque them up in that pattern. Oh, sorry. So we torque them up in that pattern, and we're done. So to 87 inch-pounds, if you got an inch-pound torque wrench. And again, that is inch-pounds. I was saying earlier 87 foot-pounds because that's how I was reading it out of the manual. And to prove I'm not dumb, it actually does say foot-pounds there, if that'll focus. So the manual is wrong, flat out. Like, I'm pretty sure if you put 87 foot-pounds on a little M6 bolt, you're going to snap that bolt every time. So that would destroy your case. You would be buying a new case or having a hell of a time drilling those out, retopping them, whatever. But either way, just don't do it. 7 foot-pounds should be your goal. 7.23 if you really want to get technical. 7 should do it. And that is that. Now, with all this, remember, I'm not a mechanic. I ain't guaranteeing nothing. You wreck your stuff working on it, it's on you. Alright, so I'm gonna get these torqued and get this camera laid down proper. Just like that. I'm gonna get these torqued and we'll call her a day. So get that on there. Why is my torque wrench backwards? Now I ran these down real quick just with my drill with a very low clutch setting, so it'd help if I wasn't loosening it like a doofus. But I did run them down with a really low clutch setting on my drill, so like a 2 out of 24 I think goes to 22. So that's what I ran them down with. Now, I don't like this torque wrench on very low torques like this because it's very hard to detect when it breaks over. Like that, it just did. So that is it. Very hard to detect. It's the only thing I don't like with this one. On higher torques, you don't have that issue, but on the lower torques, it's very hard to detect when it actually breaks over. That's why I got my hand here, so I can actually feel it, because I won't be able to hear it. Okay, I have torqued all those bolts now to the proper specified torque of 87 inch-pounds or 7 foot-pounds. I went through them a few times, made sure they were all torqued nicely. Now it's just a matter of putting in the remaining seals. So here's the one for the coupler for your pinion area, for your pinion, I guess. Put that on there. Basically, just pound that in like we did all the other ones. Put a little bit of grease on the inner seal. I'm going to use white lithium grease myself. Doesn't say which grease to use. And this seal needs to be down 1 millimeter from the lip of the housing. So depth is 1 millimeter or 0.04 inches. Basically, it has a little bit of a shelf there that it'll bottom against, but it is very small and it may not actually bottom fully properly because it's actually got a bit of a bevel here. So I would go with that and basically just use a caliper like this, right? Just use the depth gauge side of the caliper, so this little pin. Just kind of set that there and figure out your millimeter and you're set, right? So like for this would be, there's a half, there's 1.18 basically. So we're talking just below the lip. So not a big deal. If you got a big socket that'll go around the outer part of the seal, that's a way to hammer that in. I don't have one that big. The biggest I got is a 41 mil, and that's not big enough. It does go on the seal, but it's resting mostly on the inside part of the seal. I don't like that. It should be on the outside of the seal, because that's where you're pressing. You can put a little bit of oil on there to help it go in. I don't like doing that. I like putting them in nice and dry when it's a nice clean surface like this, because they're going to actually seal the best that way. My seal kit for punching in seals is solid in the center, so it won't accommodate the end of the pinion here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my soft blow hammer, and I'm basically going to very slowly tap all the way around, not trying to put it in all in one shot. Just basically I'm going to go around and around and around and around, just slowly work it in, and it'll get there. You want to go very slowly when you're using that method, because obviously you're not hammering it in exactly straight, you're going to be off. So you want to minimize angled, like you don't want to end up with the seal sitting like that, obviously, at any given time. So you want to just minimize how much that is not perfectly flush all the way around. And so you just take your time, go nice and slow, it'll work. And then the last seal is, that is getting heavy now that it's full again, is the one that goes on for the left axle. So this big boy, same idea, hammer it in. It's actually got a really nice shelf on it right here, that it's just gonna bottom out against, right? So it's gonna bottom out against here. You can actually see where the old one was sitting, because the case is discolored where it wasn't sitting. Yeah, and just basically pound her in the same way there. I think they actually provide a depth in the manual here for that. But So I don't know, I wouldn't worry about it, because it's just it's gonna bottom out against that base. But you can see on this one here, like on the pinion, bring you in, what there is kind of a lip there is nothing. Like it's no, probably less than 1 millimeter of a lip. So you could easily blow past that, hammer your seal past that and not even know it. So I would go with the, close to 1 millimeter down, or even just flush with the case. The case actually has a bit of a bevel, so I'd just make it so you can see that whole bevel and call it a day. You'll be good. Your coupler, which I wasn't able to get a new one for mine, so I guess we're gonna ride with this one, it's got a pretty wide bearing or seal mating surface on it anyways. So, if you're off by a wee bit, it's really not going to matter. It's got lots of sealing surface there to be against. So, yeah, so that's it for actually installing the kit. This is it here. I got the seal in on the left side now. Let's just roll that over there. You can see how deep into the seat it is. The manual does say to seat that about 4.5 to 5 millimeters past the lip here, right? And then you just use your caliper to figure that out. Basically what I did, like it says, it's got a good lip in there anyways for it to sit against. So I basically just put it in until it was seated tight against that, and you can hear as you're hitting it when it seats in there nice and tight. So you can definitely hear a definite thud when it starts seating tight against the case. And I just used a standard seal driver. Biggest one I had, which is 81 millimeters or 3.8 or 3.189 inches. Was actually just a little small. This outer ring just fit inside the case. Let's see here, just like this here. But it didn't need to go in that far. But it was a wee bit on the smaller side than what I would like, but it did work. Basically what I did was I tried to just run it towards the outsides and just kind of work my way around as I got it in there. And then like I says, good whack, and you can actually hear the thud difference of when it actually seats. So it seems like she's seated nice. Looks like I can kind of see the edge here as to where the coloration was a little different. So I think I got it basically in the same spot that it was, or that the old one was. And then this one here is same idea, just work it in. I did work it in to just past this, or just to the other side of this little bevel right here. And then I checked it with my caliper, and it is right around that 1 millimeter depth that the manual says to do. So that is exactly how you want that to sit, is right there. And then obviously we got the shift coupler that needs to go in here, which it fits past the seal because it's smaller than the seal is. I just got to get the spline to line up right there. Alright, so we can put the coupler in, and then we can put this coupler in, but I don't want to because it's going to go tight with the seal, so I don't want to do that just yet. And that is it. And then don't forget to put your seal in this coupler still, which I'm just noticing I haven't done. So I got to get that seal and put that in there, which should be floating around here somewhere, hopefully. I thought I'd already done that, but it doesn't look like I have. So we got to put that seal in there. That'll be just use a like a small deep socket for your driver, and that'll work just fine on that. Or even a shallow if you with an extension, right? But I need to actually locate that seal first. It's got to be on my workbench here somewhere. I didn't see it, so I had assumed I just put it in. So, all right, I'll get that looked after, and that is the last seal of that kit to put in. Like I say, I'm going to put that shift linkage and coupler together after it's on the bike, so that I can use the brakes to lock the pinion from spinning, and then I can torque it properly that way. I might see if I can just torque it lightly, or like, you know, get it in there and lightly tightened until it's on the bike. That'll actually prevent me from getting some dirt in there, actually. Okay, I found the seal. It's this little, I don't know, brassy looking one. It's actually got a brass, or, well, hell, it's probably tin or something, or maybe even a steel, rolled steel or something. But it's brass kind of looking, or copper kind of looking, I guess. With a rubber seal there, rubber inside. That's the one. Goes in this way, so the concave portion, I guess, towards the inside. I'm putting it in here, right here. There's a hole in the pinion there. If I can get the camera to sit right, you might be able to see it. Yeah, kind of right there. So it's kind of sitting right there. So drop it in best you can, and that feels evenly seated all the way around. So get my camera to work, or screen to open up again. So it feels evenly seated all the way around. Okay, so we have a few different things left to do on this front diff. One is we're going to put the oil drain plug in. If you remember, the Allen key hex, internal hex style nut was stripped. I was able to get it out, but I went and bought some hex bolts to work to replace it. So these are a class 8.8 M8 1¼ by 16. So that's what that is. We'll put on our aluminum crush washer like that, and that should do her. So we'll thread this in, and then we've got a hex bolt on here instead of that internal Allen key. It'll make it easier to get that off if it ever strips out again. Plus, we should not strip it out anyways. Oh, 13. Alright, so that'll work on 13. Now, if you want to know, it is the actual torque for that is 11 foot-pound. So grab our trusty little torque wrench here, as trusty as it can be, I guess, and we're at 5, 10, 11. All right. $11 foot-pound. There you go. So that's torqued. Probably be the last time that ever actually gets torqued properly, but for the purpose of this video, why not? All right, now we're actually going to put the coupler together. Whoa. Drop that. We're going to put the four-wheel drive coupler together, or I guess, well, it does four-wheel drive as well as just engages the front propeller shaft. So that's the remaining parts we have. We got our coupler here, our four-wheel drive sleeve, the washer, and then the lock nut that holds that on. This lock nut is one of those ones with the aluminum thread, or not aluminum, but weird little thread things on the end instead of having nylon in there. And if you actually look at the nut, it's actually a little oval, slightly off round, so that actually helps lock that on there. So we're not going to be able to torque that down on the bench, but I plan on just getting it in place, getting the nut down as far as I can. It'll at least hold everything in place, and then that way I can put this back on. It's the actuator for the four-wheel drive, and then I can get, like, basically mount that on here, and which would actually be this way, and get that in place anyways, for putting this back into the machine. And so yeah, I gotta dig the nut out of here that I just dropped in. Luckily it can't go very far, and then we'll get on to putting the coupler and the sleeve in. Okay, for the shift sleeve here, basically you need to just apply grease to everything. So I got some grease here. I'm going to put it down in here first on the spline, if I can get my finger in there. All right, so that's on the spline of the pinion. Then we're also going to apply grease to the inside spline of the shift collar, I think is basically what they're calling it. And then we also want to apply some grease to the inside part here, where the box end of the four-wheel drive actuator rides. So we want to fill that full of grease. Like, eventually this is going to get lubed with all the oil that's actually in the diff, but grease is what is recommended and required by the repair manual. All right, now we're going to slide that down on there with the 3 point blocks upwards. So basically just spin that till it finds the spline, and then slide it on down in there. Then apply some grease to the lip of the seal here. So as they say, basically you just want to grease the heck out of everything. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to add a bit of grease to this bushing on the coupler. So we're just going to kind of try to shove some of it down in there. Doesn't hurt to hit this, and we're going to try to hit that seal in there as well with some. Alright, so then we're going to slide this on in here. Don't wreck the surface of that seal. Just kind of get it down in there, just like that. Alright, let's wipe some of this grease off our hands. Get it off this outer surface. We don't really need it there. It's just going to collect dirt and grime and grit. Alright, we're going to put our washer on there, down inside. Then we'll grab our nut, put that in there. Alright, so we're gonna basically, I'm gonna tighten this up best I can for now, without trashing anything, and then I'm gonna actually torque it to spec on the quad. Now the torque spec on this is what was it, 18 foot-pounds on this nut, and you're set. So it's not really very much, but I don't have the tools to stop the pinion from spinning. So like right now you need some special tools to hold top and bottom, put it in a vise basically, and that would stop the pinion from spinning by preventing the ring gear from spinning. But like I say, I don't have those tools, so my plan is to use the drive or the axles with brakes. But I want to get this in place so that I can put the four-wheel drive actuator in place, and this will help keep the any dirt or anything from getting in there. So I'm going to tighten this down best I can here. Might be a 14, isn't it? 'Tis a 14. Alright, that went down fairly well. Wonder. No. I was gonna say, I wonder if I actually activated the four-wheel drive and then held that, but that means I got to put some clamping force on there. Well, it might work, you know, just might work. So I'm gonna slide this collar up so that the four-wheel drive is engaged. Grease is holding it in place right now. Where's my torque wrench? Let's see if we can happen to just get that actually torqued on the bench here. I don't know if we can, but we'll see. What are we at? 11 right now? That should make 15. I said it was 18, right? That should be 18. Check the book again. 18 foot-pounds for the final gear case coupling nut. So that would be this one. Yeah, so it just wants to, I can hold it just a bit, but just holding it by hand, it seems to be working so far. Okay, we are at least snugged down. We're not making torque unless I clamp that, but it is snugged down. It's held in place. And man, does that actually hold a lot nicer than it used to. So that bearing on that pinion was shot. You just need to put this on. I just need to check the manual real quick and make sure that see if there's any special way that this needs to be initiated. Like where should it be when it's first starts working. I'm gonna guess actually just like that, and it should just figure it out. Alright, but let's check the manual real quick because I have been wrong in the past. Okay, so So a little bit of a good thing I checked. The instructions are as such. So it's as though this is sitting in the quad. So in this orientation, this would be top, this would be bottom. So knowing that, we can turn it on its side. So this would still be bottom, this side would be top. Now it says to apply grease to the O-ring and to the block. And if you happen to pull this block out, pop this pin and pull this block and actually pull that part apart, then it also says apply some oil to that pin when you put it back in. So this will mount this way, and it says that the long part of the block should be facing down. You know, it doesn't really say which way that motor, or like where exactly in this rotation that this should be in. So this whole thing is cammed off of this center piece that spins, right? So then this pin is offset. So it doesn't really say where in that rotation that the main part should start at. It just says that this should be down. So I guess that's what we're gonna do. All right, so let's add some grease here. Just grab a bit of grease. We're going to put it on this O-ring for some lubrication. Basically, just coat this whole section. It's not going to hurt none. Everywhere that's inside. Just kind of make sure that O-ring gets a nice coat. And coat this block. Alrighty. And then make sure that block is hanging in the downward position, like that. And we install it. Now it's not wanting to go down and in. My assumption is because this is actually in the disengaged location in its rotation. So I'm going to slide this sleeve back some. There we go. And there we go. Now it wants to slide right on in. Made sure the block was in the downward position. Now we have 3 bolts. They're all the same length. They're all should be 8 millimeters. I believe they're M6s. They did have some red, it looks like, more pink, non-permanent Loctite on there, locking compound. We're going to replace that with my blue stuff for all 3 of those. And they torque down to 78 inch-pounds. So divide that by 12. Works out to 12, 24, 36, 60, 72. So 6.5 foot-pounds if you don't have an inch-pound bar like I do. Mine's all foot-pounds, no inch-pounds. 6.5 foot-pounds. So I don't believe I can do a half. Oh, actually, look at that. I can do a half on mine. So I'm going to do that exact 6.5 foot-pounds. Otherwise, I'd do 6. So, and then your bolt pattern or your torque pattern is this one here, then this one on the bottom, and then the opposite one on top. So let's line that up with the camera a bit here. So this one first, then this one on the bottom, and then this one here up on top on the back. And that's it. And then this thing is, well, I believe it's all ready to go, get to put in the quad. So I'm going to put some thread locker on these bolts, get them in there, get them torqued down. I'll be right back.